Welcome to the Evening Review. My name is Sukhane Klache, and joining us in studio is Duminga Ndala, who is the leader of the LPM Youth Command. Welcome to the Evening Review.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here, and Happy New Year to your viewers.
We've seen with the grade 11 results that were released, always the same story that repeats itself each year, is that thousands and thousands of learners find themselves not being able to make the grade. What is your reaction, or rather the reaction of the Youth Command to the results that were released?
Thank you for the question. I think we still have a long way to go to achieve considerable results. If we have to analyze this year's result, we have seen that there has been an improvement of 3.7%, but I think initially the results are disheartening, considering the fact that the education sector received 22.5% of the national budget. So one would actually say that the investment that we are putting in the education sector, we are not getting, it's not reflected in the results. And as a country or as a youth wing, we are very, very disheartened by the results. And I think our preposition is that we have to achieve a 50% plus passing rate, but we have been failing dismally to do that. So going forward, it's important that we seriously scrutinize and analyze this result and also craft a way forward as what should be done for us to improve these results. Because if you have to look all over Africa, Namibia is one of the countries in Africa that really invests so much in the education sector, but still every year we need a lot of learners are being pumped out of the system, and they are joining the already high unemployment rate in the country. And there's also no plan from strategic ministry to sort of absorb these learners that are being pumped out of the ministry in the mainstream media. So I mean in the mainstream economy. So it's really sad, and I think going forth, perhaps it's time that we start having honest conversation as to what is really happening. Is it the problems with the teachers? Perhaps the teaching process or approach is not satisfactory enough for us to produce good results, or perhaps the teachers are not getting enough or necessary support from the ministry, or perhaps the learners have sort of do not want to study and they are not taking their education serious. I think it's high time that we have such honest conversation. And not only that, what are the parents doing? We have noticed that a lot of parents have left the academic life of their kids to only the schools and the teachers, and this is why perhaps we are having such bad results.
There are often suggestions that there was a curriculum change that occurred, and maybe not enough time or attention went into this curriculum change, and therefore it is affecting the performance of learners.
I think that could be true, because what we have analyzed is, in terms of the new curriculum, most of the teachers, they did not get training so that they are well aligned with the new curriculum. There is one. Number two, we have noticed that there is no enough or adequate learning material that could sort of complement the new curriculum. A lot of schools still do not have textbooks. There is one. Number two, also in terms of infrastructural development, this curriculum seriously requires schools to have adequate laboratories. They require you to have libraries, but we have seen that a lot of our schools do not have that. So all those factors are a contributing factor as to why the learners are failing. And also, not only that, I think also the learners themselves, they do not understand this new curriculum, because I think 2 days ago or not, I was listening to a teacher, and this teacher was articulating the fact that there is a communication gap between all stakeholders within the education fraternity. The institutions of higher learning, they do not also understand this new curriculum, therefore they are unable to accommodate some of these learners that exit in grade 11 and they do not proceed to AS level, because the issue is there are some courses at the institutions of higher learning, they do not require these learners to proceed to AS level, but rather you can exit in grade 11 and then just continue with your studies. But obviously this type of information is not, it has not been communicated thoroughly. That is one. Number two, apart from that, I think there are no proper monitoring and evaluation mechanisms in schools to sort of review and evaluate and monitor whether this curriculum is being implemented as it should be. I think that is one of the contributing factor. So perhaps going forward, like I said, if we start having this honest conversation as to how can we improve and how do we ensure that this curriculum is well implemented throughout the country. I should perhaps say this, that last year when I was on a campaign journey with my party, I managed to visit a few schools within the Kavango East region. And when I got there, I was really sad that 33 years or 34 years this year of independence, there are still some schools that do not have the necessary infrastructure to aid proper learning. There are no desk chairs. And imagine if this specific school has AS level, how will they be able to deliver these lessons and how will they be able to implement this new curriculum in its entirety?
What are some of the interventions that you think could be introduced to address this high failure rate and ensure that we can at least start to see improvement little by little?
I think this is a very complex question, and we obviously know that the education sector is very dynamic and very complex, and there's no right or wrong answer. But I think what we first need to do is to sort of, number one, ensure that schools have the necessary material to aid learning. That is one thing. We need to ensure that there are proper infrastructures to sort of ensure and to smoothen the learning process. Like I said previously, that some of the schools do not have labs, they do not have libraries, and there are no computers within the schools, and learners are expected to sort of practice or do some of these activities in those labs and in the library. So that is one. Number two, I think it has to come down to leadership. We really need to scrutinize the principals, whether they are carrying out their duties as it should be, because you would find that some principals do not even attend schools, some principals do not even hold the HODs accountable, more or less the teachers. Some of the teachers are constantly absent from schools, meaning that they will not be able to deliver the lessons. That is one thing. And also we need to ensure that there are proper mechanisms to evaluate this teacher and see to it whether you have completed the syllabus and how many and what have you done and what have you done to support the slow learners, because we have a situation where teachers do not even care, or they do not cater for the slow learners in class. And if you have to scrutinize the results properly, you would find that a lot of those that didn't make it to the next level are actually slow learners, and they are not given sufficient attention in class. And also sometimes I think the teachers themselves should also raise to the occasion and take charge of teaching, because there are some of these teachers, they do not understand what they are supposed to be doing. We have seen a lot of teachers, they spend their teaching time on TikTok. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but during school hours you need to dedicate your time to teaching these learners and ensuring that these learners and fully understand what they are supposed to be doing. That is one. And lastly, perhaps we need to create a support system for all learners in Namibia. What do I mean by that? We need to ensure that the afternoon classes that really look at to how we can improve the results, number one. Number two, we need to establish exchange programs. Perhaps we can take some of these learners from this school to go to another school that is performing well. Because if you have to look at the result also, you would find that those that are at the private schools, obviously because they get the necessary resources, they perform quite well compared to government schools. Perhaps we can exchange ideas and learn from each other to see to it how we can improve these results going forward.
I hear some of the contributions that you're making in terms of looking at improving the results. But then I want to ask the question of, because what was missing is the involvement of the parents, of the community. Don't you think there's more that also needs to be done from a home front?
I definitely agree with it. Like I said, that the academic lives of learners should just not be left to the ministry alone and teachers, but the parents themselves should also be directly involved in the academic life of their children. I think because of obviously the social factors that a lot of homes are confronted with, the parents are unable to sort of intervene in the academic lives of their children. But not only that, I think community members, because we are Africans and we believe in the culture of Ubuntu, we should be able to help those learners that are confronted with social issues, and those learners that have parents but they are not supportive towards their academic lives. Like I said, the education fraternity is very multifaceted, and perhaps all stakeholders within the education fraternity, whether it's the ministry, it's the teachers, it's the parents, we should all come together and sort of craft a concrete plan as to how we are going to do to improve this result. I have seen a lot of cases where parents really do not really even ask how their kids are performing at schools. Some parents do not even attend parent-teacher meeting, and these are some of the complaints that the teachers have been having. Other parents don't just care whether their child are passing or not. So I feel like parents should also take charge of their children's academic life. They should also ensure that they create a conducive environment where they are able to engage the teacher and to ask as to how far is their children performing and what can they do to sort of support them in order for them to get considerable results at the end of the year.
What is your big concern, or what keeps you awake at night thinking about these results when this matter comes to mind? What is the most scary thought? I
think the most scary thought is the fact that we have just spammed out close to 40,000 learners on the street. There is no concrete plan as to how these learners are going to go forward with their lives. And obviously, as a country, we are faced with the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Obviously, these learners are going to increase. They are going to be added onto that number. And if they have nothing to do, what will they resort to? They will resort to criminal activities. And in some cases, especially girls, they will resort into prostitution and so forth. So I think that is my biggest plan. And the sad part is I don't think there is a concrete plan to absorb these people in the mainstream media, because as a country we are already failing to create employment to graduates. What about now those that have not, or those that are unable to proceed to the next level? So it's a very disheartening issue, and I think going forward, considering that this is an election year, political parties, starting with the Landless People's Movement, should have a concrete plan as to how we are going to deal with the issues of unemployment, inequality, and poverty in this country.
You touched on an important aspect earlier on in the interview, where you criticized the fact that Namibia spends a large amount on education, but is not reaping the necessary rewards for that. And clearly it's a matter of money not addressing the issue.
Well, I read somewhere that the monies that is allocated to the education budget, 80% of that goes to salaries, and then it means the other percentage goes to infrastructural development, which we are already struggling as a country, because just today we have read in the newspaper that for the past 8 years there's not been any new schools that have been built in Namibia. You can imagine, and there's a supply, or there's a demand of, or there's an increase of enrollment of learners going to school, but there's not been any school built, not even a single school. What they have done is to sort of perhaps provide tents to sort of accommodate those learners that they do not have space. So I think, and the rest of this percentage goes to learning material. So it basically means that despite us pumping so much money in the education sector, this money is not being used effectively because it's being channeled to salaries as opposed to learner and teachers development or learner and teachers supportive initiative. So perhaps we should find a proper way to ensure that at least 50% of this budget should be channeled to priority areas, which is the learning material and infrastructural development. Because if we do not get these two factors right, then each year we are going to be here and again we are going to deliberate on these results. That's one. Number two, we are going to pump out a lot of learners from the education sector. And after 5 years, we are going to have a situation where these young people are going to take up arms and they are going to demand what is rightfully theirs, which is jobs, opportunities, and so forth. We might just have a youth revolt, and as a country, we cannot afford to have that, considering the economic and social status of the country. We cannot afford to do that. So perhaps this year, I don't know if we have to increase the budget more so that we ensure that at least 50 or 30% of this monies goes to priority areas, which is learning materials and infrastructural development. Perhaps that is something that we need to deliberate on. But all we are saying is, despite us pumping so much money in the education sector, most of this money is not going to priority areas, but is rather paying for salaries of the teachers and all the other people within the education sector. Yeah.
I want to draw your attention now to something else, and then it's the start of the year, and it's also an election year. As the LPM Youth Command, would you perhaps just let us into some of the activities that you have planned for the year 2024?
Okay, I think one of the exciting programs that we are going to have is, for the first time in the country, the Youth Command element is going to launch their youth manifesto. It has never been done in the country before, so we'll be the first youth league to launch the youth manifesto. This manifesto will outright all the issues that should be addressed if we have to win government from a youth perspective. I think mostly if you have to look at all party manifesto, they do not really deliberate on the issues that are affecting young people directly. Usually they talk of industry development, but there's no youth factor within the manifesto. So I think our manifesto, we are outright going to speak on all sectors and all issues affecting young people. One of them, which is unemployment, the education sector, the high rate of inequality within young people in the country. And this bits of our manifesto will be incorporated in the party's main manifesto. So we are very excited, and we hope that we are able to engage all young people in Namibia so that they can also give us ideas, and we can see to it on how we can factor within our manifesto. That is one. And the other thing, obviously, we are going to have a big campaign where we are going to encourage especially young people to register to vote. I think it's important that young people take charge of their political lives and they also sort of vote, because when you vote, you are actually taking a stance that this is our stand as young people and we want change. But if you do not vote, it's also equated to protest voting, and it means that you are not involved in political processes and political processes and decision making. So it's important that young people are actually vote. And the third one, I think we are also going to launch the voters education campaign, because a lot of people, particularly young people, they do not know why they should vote, and they also do not understand the political climate. They do not understand why is it important for one to vote. So I think those are the three main activities that we are looking forward to before the main election.
And do you think political parties, LPM included, have done enough to in the past to encourage young people to vote?
I think that's a very tricky question. I think obviously from my perspective as a youth leader, I think as the Youth Command element, we have done quite well to sort of conscientize the mind of young people and to to let them know that that is important for them to take part in political activities. I think we have done quite well, but I do not know to what extent other political parties has done that, or to what extent we have done that, and that can only be proven during the voters registration period, whether a lot of young people are going to come out to register. That is one, and also during the election, if whether they are going to come out and vote, because whether they register to vote, there is one aspect of it, but if they actually vote, there is also one aspect to it. So I think political parties for the past 5 years, they had a lot of social media campaigns to really encourage young people, but I think young people in my generation, we are not interested in political rhetorics, we are not interested in political talks, but rather we really want things happening for young people. We want political parties to come out and tell us how many young people they have employed ever since they have took charge of local authorities, regional councils, and so forth. That is one thing. We also want political parties to tell us as to how are they going to employ young people, provided that they win elections come November. So I think that is one of our greatest concern. We are not interested whether we are not interested whether we are going to come out to vote, but we are really interested how they are going to change our material conditions as young Namibians.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Evening Review.
Thank you for having me.
That concludes the Evening Review. Have yourself a splendid evening.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Neopaints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neopaints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neopaints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.